You are now listening to Tackling the World, a podcast designed to bridge the political divide by bringing people together to discuss important topics affecting our daily lives. Today, we discuss our topic, Women in STEM, a very important topic to discuss because of our ever-changing job market. Our guest is Stuti Arora, a senior in high school, and she will be sharing her perspective on women in STEM.
Hello.
Hey, Stuti, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Shashank?
I'm doing pretty great. Thanks for coming on to the show.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so then are you ready to get into our topic today, Women in STEM?
So ready.
All right, let's get going. So how has being in STEM affected your life?
Yeah, so truthfully, I have always been more inclined towards math and engineering, but beyond my math class, I felt like I never really had opportunities to pursue it and to apply the concepts I was learning in a meaningful way. And that is until I joined my high school's robotics team, Crimson Robotics.
Mm-hmm.
Working with a group of like-minded students and getting a taste of applying the concepts that I learned gave me a little sample of what it's like to be an engineer. And ever since then, I've been hooked. STEM, especially through robotics, gave me a passion for engineering that goes far beyond the hands of high school and hopefully the rest of my life. And I know in my heart that I was meant to pursue engineering, so I can't wait to use it to better the world in any way I can.
So I know that in robotics, you actually created a subgroup, a part of the team called GEARS, Girls in Engineering and Robotics. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so my inspiration for GEARS came through the Girls Mentor Network that I am a participant of through UmpTIUMP, which is a math program at the University of Minnesota. And there, at the Girls Mentor Network, girls from all over UmpTIUMP and all over the Twin Cities really would come and just talk about their math accomplishments and topics that interested them in math that professors would help us guide and navigate through so that we could study material that was super interesting to us. And it also gave us an opportunity to talk about maybe any discrepancies or any little signs of a stigma or discrimination that we encountered in class so that we could confront it and tackle the problem immediately rather than wait for something to really erupt before discussing our safety and our happiness in math class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so then I started GEARS after a couple meetings of the Girls Mentor Network through UmpTIUMP, and it really has two components. The first component of the GEARS program was to inspire young girls to join and participate in STEM, and the second was to empower girls and women already participating in STEM activities.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So what real life effects have you seen because of GEARS?
I'm very happy to say that we have seen a lot of transition through the GEARS program. When I first joined our robotics team freshman year, there was one girl out of, I think, 30 leadership positions on our team, which is insanity. Mm-hmm. And I was so happy at the end of last year's elections where we actually reached equality in our leadership ranks. We had 34 to 35 leadership roles, and 17 of them were filled by girls, which was super duper exciting to see that girls on the team could hold their voices strong and participate in discussions beyond just art and marketing, but also in the engineering aspects of the team.
And what kind of events has GEARS provided for young girls aspiring to be in the STEM major or girls already in the STEM field? Sorry.
Yeah, so the GEARS program has done a lot of work on outreaching towards the community. We saw the change that we could make within our own high school's robotics team by having these weekly meetings and check-ins, but also having women role models come and talk to us all the time who are already technologists. And we kind of took that to the next level by expanding it to our greater community so that girls all over Maple Grove and Osseo district schools could have the same opportunities that we did. And so through outreach events and robot demonstrations, we have talked to and held STEM events to cater to over 70 girls in elementary school. And we also were able to carry this through the community through the Strive and Thrive in STEM panel, where we hosted 4 women technologists from Fortune 200 companies across the Twin Cities. And they acted as panelists. And so we had basically a panel for those women technologists to express their backgrounds and express their passions and interests and why girls should continue in STEM despite the hardships that they encounter. And they also gave personal advice, academic advice, and also career advice. And I think a lot of girls were really happy and pleased after the event because they got to see direct role models in positions that they also wanted in their future. And so we catered to as many groups as we could. I think we had a couple of 4 or 5 year olds, but also 2 juniors in college. So it catered to a large group and a large community, hopefully to make the same change that we were able to make in our high school's robotics team.
Yeah, and I can see just from you talking about it that it was an extremely like exciting panel, and a lot of people got to learn many different things while there. And I can tell that this was also a very fulfilling experience for you to be able to start gears and to see this change happening in front of your eyes and not after you've long left. So I think that's really awesome, and that's pretty cool.
Thank
So,
you.
what do you believe are the problems with the decreased participation in STEM among females?
There are so many problems with having less women in STEM. And the first one that kind of comes to me is this lack of diversified thought. If you look at the composition of Fortune 500 companies, and specifically of their composition of employees in technology related fields and technology departments, the demographics
Hmm.
are overwhelmed by men, and mainly white men, to be frank. And so when you
Yeah.
only have one demographic group that's trying to find solutions to global challenges and problems with technology, the solutions all seem to revolve around and appeal to this specific group's background, their thought processes, and their mentalities when they're actually meant to fulfill a global problem. And the globe is not composed of one demographic, but of countless diversity. So, to really build up and find solutions to universal problems, it's crucial to have a diversified group, not just of race or ethnicity or gender, but a diversified mentality, which can only come from having people who don't all look the same. And so, more women participating in STEM and having stronger voices and technological solutions can lead to more out of the box approaches to fully solve a problem and not just a piece of it.
And do you think companies around the world, especially Fortune 500 companies, are acknowledging this problem, and are they stepping up to help bridge that gap?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are. They are taking the steps and the doing the outreach required to make sure that girls are interested and have opportunities to pursue STEM from a younger age. I think sometimes internally within a company, it's not always a sought after goal to make sure that women's voices are heard or women are
Hmm.
being included in every discussion. But I think the most companies target the bottom half or the first facet of encouraging more women in STEM by making sure that girls always have inspiration and opportunities to pursue their interests. Now, the second half of the process is to make sure that women constantly feel empowered in their roles and empowered to speak up and voice their decisions in company environments as well.
Hmm. And I know that especially right now, with you doing gears and everything, inspiration is incredibly important, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
young girls need people, female leaders in STEM to look up to say, oh, I want to be just like her when I grow up, or I want to do this just like her. And, that requires lots of female role models. So who is your female STEM role model?
Yeah, so I have had so many phenomenal female STEM role models that it's hard to just choose one. But someone who's been especially inspiring in very recent years and months has been Katie Bowman. She is a phenomenal computer scientist who was an instrumental part of the team that took the first picture of the black hole. And so having some pictorial representation of the black hole has been a sought after goal for over a decade by astronomers,
Hmm.
physicists, scientists of all over the world because black holes can provide so much information on how the beginnings of the universe really occurred, and it can supplement theories like the Big Bang Theory and how the universe was created, and then unravel the mysteries that followed from there. So it was an incredible feat, an incredible scientific accomplishment. And I think the most inspirational part of it all was that so she's 29 years old, and she was on the face of almost every news or magazine article that published this scientific accomplishment, which is
Oh,
something
wow.
that I feel is really rare for women. So when women make scientific accomplishments or huge strides in scientific or STEM fields, they're often kind of tucked away or not really given the credit they deserve. And the reason she inspired me was so much is because she was kind of the face of that movement, where she's one of the first women to actually be acknowledged for the work that she has done in modern times within her time. Because if you look at other women scientists and technologists, like all the women in Hidden Figures, their
Mm-hmm.
work and all of the effort that they put into sending people onto the moon was in the 1960s. And their work went
Yeah.
unacknowledged and uncomplimented and given no recognition until 2016 when the movie was released. And so it took 56 years before people really knew the back force and the force behind sending all of the astronauts to the moon. And so it takes a while, usually or historically, it has always taken a while for women to get credit for all their accomplishments. But Catherine Bowman was one woman who was acknowledged for her scientific accomplishments in her time, which I find really inspiring.
Yeah, I mean that's great. I know when I saw the image or when they took it and it was like all over the news. I mean, that was super cool, super exciting. And I know especially for you and other, many young girls who are, striving to just become her one day,
Mm-hmm.
that's very inspiring for sure.
And one thing I
What would
really
you go ahead.
Oh, sorry. But one thing I liked even more about the whole thing was when articles were published, they often use the picture of the moment that the black hole picture was taken. So you could see Katie with like her hands on her mouth and smiling and almost like screaming because she was so
Mhm.
happy. But you could also see the picture of the black hole on her computer screen right beside her. And so that was super empowering and inspiring too, because it gave girls a direct role model and her scientific accomplishment in one picture, which was something that I think girls who are seeing this can carry on for the rest of their lives because they can keep that in their mind and be like, this girl was able to do it, so can I.
Yeah, I mean for sure, definitely. That's definitely a very empowering image when people are able to see something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell young girls who are afraid of joining the STEM field? Because I know that, we have role models, but we obviously know that, women are not well represented in the STEM fields, and
Mm-hmm.
many women are not able to find their correct role models. So what do you tell people who are afraid?
To young girls who are afraid of joining these STEM fields, don't be. Don't let your fear overcome what you know in your heart you were meant to do. And there will be times where it'll be excruciatingly difficult, but if you're able to even change or improve one life with your work, it'll all be worth it. So by simply being in STEM, a girl is paving the way for so many other girls to join who are also hesitant. So by taking that step and participating in STEM and having your voice heard, you are inspiring so many others around you to do the same. So confidently pursue STEM and fulfill your dreams and your goals.
Awesome. And what would you say to people who think that focusing on women in STEM is discouraging men in STEM? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I have been asked this more than you would think. And
Mm-hmm.
reality is that if there was equality in STEM, there wouldn't be the significant need for girls to constantly be encouraged and for the not only companies but organizations to push women to go into STEM academics or careers. But the reality is, and the truth is, that it's not equal. I mean, there's 20% of women getting degrees in technological or scientific fields, and there's, I think, 28% of the STEM workforce is composed of women. And so it's not 50-50. And until it is 50-50, the focus has to be on encouraging girls and women to pursue STEM.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're pursuing or when you're encouraging someone to be a part of a greater movement, it's not always discouraging the opposite group, which I think sometimes it can be perceived as. So by encouraging women in STEM, that doesn't mean you're against men in STEM. It's all about encouraging people who have been oppressed in the past and haven't had the same opportunities.
Definitely. And many people out there, I mean, I know this is definitely wrong, but like many people out there think that, the woman in STEM movement has gone far enough because, as we were talking about, we talked about how companies were, doing more to help represent women in their companies by, getting them the spotlight, giving them, more of the recognition that they deserve for the work that they're doing. And
Mhm.
then we were talking about Katie Bowman and how she was able to get that picture and how she's been an inspiration to many. And, many people look at that and they say, oh, I mean, I think the women in STEM movement has done what it's supposed to do, and I don't think we should be pushing it more. What do you say to those people?
There is still a tremendous, tremendous amount of work to be done. I can give a personal example where I'm attending the University of Minnesota next year to pursue computer science. And I went to their freshman engineering night or something to that effect. And they were
Mm-hmm.
giving a presentation on statistics at the University of Minnesota and specifically in their College of Engineering. And one of the statistics was that in the year 2000, 17% of degrees in STEM fields were from women. And in 2019, I think it was 30 or 32% of women were getting degrees from this College of Engineering. And the presenter paused for a second and kind of looked around and waited for everyone to applause, and then the crowd did. But I sat there and I was shocked. I was like, why should we apply for anything that's less or applaud for anything that's less than 50-50? The goal
Mm-hmm.
here is to reach equality in STEM, especially in academics or careers or in general in terms of inventions and accolades. We want to make sure that women are being represented equally and given the same opportunities as men in STEM, and get access to those opportunities. And so if it's not 50-50, the movement has not gone far enough. If it's not equal, then there's still more work to be done. And that would be something that I would say to anyone who has said that the women in STEM movement has done what it's supposed to, and it's gone far enough.
And with the way things are looking right now for women in STEM, how much longer do you think, just a prediction, how much longer do you think we have until we get to that 50-50?
Honestly, if everyone in the world participated in encouraging girls to pursue STEM and encouraging women to have their voices heard in STEM, the problem could be solved within a week. All it takes is the effort on each individual's part to make sure that they're not, whether it be unconsciously or consciously, sidelining women from their professional careers in STEM or isolating women or girls who are taking STEM classes. So it's all about bringing this problem to awareness to a lot of people. Because I think one of the biggest problems and one major part of the solution to encouraging more girls in STEM is simply to acknowledge the problem. I think a lot of people still believe that, oh, girls are still given the same opportunity as men or boys in terms of pursuing STEM and having the opportunities of STEM. But the
Mm-hmm.
reality is, if that were the case, then we would have been at 50-50. It's not just about opportunity, it's also about the stereotypes and the stigmas against women in STEM that kind of hinder that success and hinder that statistic. And so by simply acknowledging the problem first and then taking steps to address those stereotypes and those prejudices, that's when change can come. And if everyone were able to really acknowledge it and take steps to solve the problem, it would be eliminated so quickly.
So, do you believe in exactly having 50-50%, or is the ultimate goal here to provide the opportunity and to inspire young women to take roles in STEM?
I definitely believe in having 50-50. The world
Mm-hmm.
composition is 50% women, 50% men. So I don't see why that has to be any different for women and men in STEM careers or STEM fields.
Okay. And so moving on, prejudice and assumed stereotypes keep women of color, especially Black women, from studying in STEM fields. Psychologically, stereotypes on Black women's intellect, cognitive abilities, and work ethic contribute to their lack of confidence in STEM. What needs to happen around the country for this to stop?
So to start off, the prejudice and stigma against women of color, especially Black women in STEM fields, is truthfully disgusting. And it really goes even beyond the discussion of just including women in STEM at hand, because it's tapping into these racial stereotypes that are hurting people who want to pursue the things they want, if that makes sense. So
Mm-hmm.
by kind of absorbing and relaying this prejudice and this stereotype, you are feeding into a movement where you're um, where you're assuming and you're judging someone before even knowing them. And I understand and I empathize with women of color because it is a struggle, and especially African American women pursuing STEM, they face another set of obstacles that most of us don't even have to think about. But along with women of color and in terms of women pursuing STEM, another tremendous issue is honestly just the stigma against women in STEM. And stigma always seems to be like a harsh word that people call me out on. But if we were having a conversation and I say, Shashank, close your eyes and imagine a scientist. And now imagine that scientist using a pipette to pick one solution up and move it to another test tube. And if you can open your eyes and truly say that you didn't think of a man in a lab coat and like some sort of scientifical lab, I
Hmm.
applaud you. But the the current ingrained image that we have in our brains is a man doing all those things. So when you think of physicist or astronomer or engineer or mathematician, you always think of a guy in those positions. And so girls have to face not only the boundary of kind of feeling unfit for the role in STEM careers, but they also have to feel and face the obstacles that being in a STEM field requires, which is extreme technical skill and knowledge, and just a lot of hard work. And so, especially women of color, they kind of have another obstacle beyond just women in STEM, where they have to face the prejudices of their ethnicity, gender, and then, of course, the challenges that come with being in STEM.
And while you're telling me to close my eyes, I actually did.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, I'll be honest with you. I mean, you are right. I mean, I imagined, a guy in a lab coat.
Yeah,
And, that just shows that, I mean, you're right. Until we can, change that and have people thinking of great, women who are scientists. I mean, I think this is, not going to stop. And, that was kind of shocking. And, as I did it, that's what I thought. So, that was a pretty cool experiment. It's a great way to tell people, this is why we have that problem. So that was really
exactly.
good.
Exactly.
So let's talk about government and politics just a little bit, not too much. So um so we know the government for a very long time, has been involved with, equality. There's movements for equality among liberals, not so much among conservatives. But what should the government be doing right now? What role should they play, especially politicians, to help bridging that gap?
Yeah, so there has definitely been some progress in terms of encouraging women in STEM thus far from where it originally was, but more needs to
Mm-hmm.
be done. And it can't just be the responsibility for women, but it has to be a universal effort. And so the government, policymakers, communities, lawmakers, they should absolutely um, offer women the same opportunity as men, but catered to women. So obviously, women get pregnant, and so laws should be in place to really offer maternity and childcare benefits to women in careers. And
Yeah.
companies have to foster a culture of support towards their female workforce, not as a favor, but as a collective responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that the government could really do is pass the ERA to ensure that equal pay is universal in this nation and is absolutely given to women working in STEM fields. The pay gap is another major issue in women in STEM. Two candidates with the same backgrounds, the same degrees, the same work ethic, and the male counterpart will definitely get paid significantly more simply because of his gender. And so the ERA is is a bill and is a doctrine that can ensure equal pay to verify that women are always treated and paid equally in any field, not just STEM.
So when you were talking about the pay gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, let me see. I need to formulate my thoughts. I just kind of lost it. um, so when we're talking about the pay gap, you were saying that um, that's a definite problem because you were saying that when were you saying if there was like an interview, right? And I was like interviewing two candidates, one was a male and let's just say the other one was you. And if I were to hire the male candidate, I would give him more money than if I would have hired you. Is that what you're saying?
In a way, yes, but I can also shed some more light on that. So the New York Times released an article actually not very recently, maybe it was a year or two ago, but they basically measured confidence levels in men versus women. And so even though a lot of men didn't have like a specific background in a very specific career, oftentimes they kind of gave themselves another sense of confidence and they felt more confident about a position they maybe weren't perfectly suited for, despite
Hmm.
having lower levels of education and lower levels of skill in that particular area. And so they needed probably 50% of that knowledge to be able to still go for that job and feel confident in going for that job. Women, on the other hand, had needed to and wanted to have at least 70 to 80% of that confident or that content mastered before they felt confident to go for the same job. So women constantly
Ah.
feel like they need to have more educational prominence. They need to have better grades, better activities, just to feel confident enough to go for the same roles. And I think that same concept translates into um, negotiating for pay. Obviously, when you're
Mm.
applying for a job, there's some wiggle room for asking for more pay or more benefits or so. And even though men may not always have the most academic expertise in that field, they still feel confident enough to not only apply for that job and interview for that job, but they also feel confident in asking for more money. While women, on the other hand, will kind of be like, oh, I already kind of got this job, so maybe I'll be fine with even if I don't ask for more, or maybe I feel a little bit more uncomfortable asking for more. And that's where the pay gap also arises. And the fact that women are facing these stigmas and constantly feeling like, oh, maybe science isn't really for me, or maybe math isn't really for me. So they feel unfit in these STEM fields and STEM cultures. And that's why they don't always ask for more or they don't always negotiate for more the same way men do.
So confidence is a very huge factor when it comes to the pay gap. From
Absolutely.
what you're saying, and people, and women need to be confident in what they're doing, and ask strongly for what they want.
Yes.
Um,
But I
Definitely.
also
So,
I also want to
mhm.
acknowledge that if you look at like the pay gap between women and men CEOs, that is another extraordinary discrepancy. And that one isn't always related to a woman's confidence or a man's confidence. It's also
Mhm.
related to just the simple stigma that a man is seen as like a hero, a leader, versus a woman always isn't seen in that role. So they're compensated far less than their male counterpart would. So that is also another very true fact, not just for top executives, but all throughout technical fields and career industries.
Mhm. And we've talked about a lot today,
Mhm.
and all these questions. We always come back to the same exact core points, which are important. Confidence, inspiration, things like that. We always come back to that. And I feel like for people who are listening, that's definitely something that we need to take into account and listen to. So I want to give you a chance to tell the viewers, not viewers, listeners here. We've talked about a lot today, and you've answered a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So, what do you want people who are listening today to take away from this? Like the most important thing you want them to take away?
Yeah. So I want to acknowledge that, as I said before, there has been some progress in terms of encouraging women in STEM. But as I mentioned also before, that more needs to be done. It can't just be a responsible for women, but it has to be a responsibility for men, women, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, relatives, family, friends to always encourage and make sure that women are having their voices heard, especially in STEM and technical fields. And so I know that women before me have worked so hard to take the boys only sign off the door. And so I want to be part of the generation that not only keeps the door open, but rips the door off the wall and off their hinges. So to reach 50-50, we need to engage in a collective effort to bring change. And this change can start from the simplest moments and simplest comments. And really, I challenge everyone who's listening to be aware of this bias and to do something to change it.
Yeah, and thank you for that, and definitely to all the listeners out there, join Studi in this to not to just open the door, but to literally rip it off and
Mhm.
make it free. So it's definitely important. So thank you so much, Studi, for coming onto the show and
Thank you
having a
for
really good,
having
productive
me.
conversation with me on women in STEM. It was really nice to hear your perspective, and I'm sure people listening today learned something new.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun to be able to talk to this.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. And finally, thank you to all the listeners for taking time out of your day to listen and help bridge the political divide. Our next podcast will be next Monday, the 1st of June. So be sure to tune in for another awesome guest and great discussion. Until then, thank you, and I'll see you all next week.